Museveni, president of Uganda, said something no Western nations expected. He said it with fire in his voice. No apologies, no room for negotiation.
So some people wanted us to export iron ore or butare, we call it in our language. Iron ore. I said over my dead body.
That wasn't just a statement. It was a declaration of war against a system that's been robbing Africa blind. But how far is he ready to go? Let's find out. In the quiet backrooms of global business, deals are made every day, often without the knowledge or consent of the people most affected. But this time, the deal didn't slip through. Not in Uganda. Not under President Yoweri Museveni. It started like they all do. A group of foreign investors, dressed in tailored suits, flew in with smiles, handshakes, and a proposal that, on the surface, looked like a golden opportunity. They wanted Uganda's iron ore, untouched, raw, and shipped straight to their industrial hubs abroad. They came not just to negotiate, but to assume it was already theirs. After all, that's how it's always been done, for decades. But this time they met a different kind of African leader. Museveni didn't just decline the offer. He declared a full-blown ban on the export of all unprocessed minerals, starting with iron. That moment wasn't about one deal. It was about rewriting the rules of engagement between Africa and the world.
Some people wanted us to export. We have got very good iron ore here. The best in the world, high grade, 70% pure. It's the best. There's no, only the one of Peru is near, about 50%, but ours is much higher. So some people wanted us to export iron ore or butare, we call it in our language, to India. And one of our districts, where some people who are here, whom I see come from, had already made a deal with India that we sell our iron ore to them as iron ore. I said over my dead body. I have banned all the export of unprocessed minerals from here. Let them stay in the ground. When the grandchildren come, they will get them out. So, a ton of iron ore at that time, they would give us $47. Then they go, because it is very high quality, a ton of iron ore gives you 700 kilograms of steel, almost 1-to-1. Now, from a ton of steel, that time they were getting $900. So, the sleepy Africans here, the French have a good word, dormir beaucoup, that we are sleeping too much. The sleepy Africans would get $47. A clever outsider would get $900 from almost the same amount of. Later on, when the price had come down a bit of steel, it was about 600, 700, I don't know where it is now. But it's much more than what we would be getting. So I said, no way. Let the iron ore stay in the ground.
To understand how bold this is, you have to understand what iron ore means to Uganda. Beneath Ugandan soil lies millions of metric tons of high-grade iron ore, resources that could transform a nation's destiny. But historically, that kind of wealth hasn't benefited African countries. It's been dug out, shipped away, and turned into fortunes somewhere else. Not this time. Museveni saw the trap from a mile away. The world doesn't ask Africa what it needs. It tells Africa what to do with its land. And when it comes to minerals, the formula is always the same. Extract, export, repeat. Uganda was never supposed to move beyond that role. Museveni's response shattered that expectation. But this isn't just economics, it's about power. When a nation exports raw materials and imports the finished product, it remains stuck in a cycle of dependence. It can never rise above survival mode because it never controls the tools of production. Museveni understood that Uganda didn't just risk losing profit, it risked losing its future. And this wasn't a snap decision. For years, Uganda has been quietly investing in infrastructure to support industrialization, building energy capacity through hydroelectric dams, developing transportation links, and training a new generation of engineers and technicians. Museveni knew that with these foundations in place, Uganda didn't need to beg for investment. It needed to protect its capacity to grow. By banning the export of raw iron, he wasn't shutting the door on trade, he was opening the door to domestic transformation. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Here's the hidden genius of the move. Banning raw exports forces foreign companies to come to Uganda with real partnerships. If they want access to the iron, they must set up smelters, factories, and production facilities in Uganda. They must hire Ugandan workers, train Ugandan engineers, and leave behind real value, not just empty mines and broken promises. This strategy flips the global value chain. Instead of being the start of someone else's profit, Uganda becomes the engine of its prosperity. But let's be clear, this kind of resistance comes at a cost. The backlash was immediate. Phone calls, pressure from diplomats, quiet threats from economic alliances. Museveni didn't flinch. He has seen what happens when leaders bow to that pressure. He has seen how quickly dreams of development vanish when the IMF or World Bank steps in with a rescue package attached to the fine print. Uganda's decision is not just about minerals, it's about mental liberation. For generations, African leaders have been conditioned to believe that raw exports equal progress, that if you dig more, ship more, and sell more, prosperity will eventually come. Museveni's stance destroys that myth. He's not alone in this thinking, but he's one of the few willing to say it aloud and act on it. That's what makes this moment historic. Because the truth is, iron isn't just a resource, it's a symbol. It built empires, it forged weapons, it powered revolutions. And now, in Uganda, it's becoming the boundary line between economic servitude and self-determination. Museveni drew that line not with diplomacy, but with clarity. If you want our iron, help us build our future with it. If you won't, then leave it in the ground. This is not about isolation. It's about elevation. The kind of elevation that requires bravery, not just in policy, but in principle. And once one African country draws that line, others begin to notice. Museveni's defiance over Uganda's iron wasn't born in a vacuum. It's the latest spark in a fire that has smoldered for over a century. To understand why his words hit like a thunderclap, you have to follow the trail of Africa's raw materials, across oceans, through factories, and into the heart of Western wealth. This isn't about one mineral or one country. This is about a system, a global operating manual that was written not by accident, but by design. And it all begins with one brutal truth. Africa was never meant to rise, at least not by the rules the West created. From the moment European ships first docked on African coasts, the mission was clear. Extract, export, exploit. They came for slaves, then for rubber, then for ivory, gold, diamonds, oil, and uranium. And every time, the script was the same. Dig it up, ship it out, and process it elsewhere. The only thing left behind? Poverty, pollution, and people told to be patient. Museveni isn't just banning the export of iron, he's putting that system on trial. Let's look at what the West did with what they took. Cotton from Sudan ended up in British textile mills. Gold from South Africa filled European vaults and funded imperial armies. Coffee from Ethiopia and Uganda became the luxury morning fuel of executives in New York and Paris. Copper from the DRC powered American telegraphs and, later, global communication. But the wealth didn't stop in shipping containers. It compounded. Profits from raw materials built industrial revolutions. That infrastructure created banks, universities, railways, and technologies that put Europe and America decades ahead. Meanwhile, African countries were left begging for loans to fix roads leading to the very mines they never owned. And the insult doesn't end with money. It seeps into the way the West still talks to Africa. They tell us we're developing nations, as if we were born behind. as if the centuries of looting were just unfortunate accidents in history, as if the empires weren't built on the backs of African resources and labor. Museveni's refusal to continue exporting raw materials is a rebellion not just against economic theft, but against historical gaslighting. Because here's what most of the world refuses to admit: Africa didn't fail. Africa was sabotaged. Every railway the colonizers built led straight to a mine or a port, not a school, not a hospital. Every law written was designed to ease extraction, not empowerment. And every independence deal came with a catch, a clause, a contract, a bribe, or a bullet. That's the system Museveni is trying to break. Because he knows the cost of playing nice. Take Liberia's rubber plantations, still dominated by Western corporations, or Ghana's cocoa, whose farmers are paid pennies while Europe's chocolate industry rakes in billions, or Niger, where French companies continue to mine uranium, even while most Nigerians live in darkness without electricity. These are not stories of trade. These are stories of economic occupation. Museveni is one of the few leaders saying the quiet part out loud. The West did not get rich through innovation alone. It got rich through extraction, through the forced, cheap, or manipulated acquisition of African resources. And worse, it never gave Africa the tools to process its wealth.
I was meeting an American delegation just now, and I was telling them that please, the new government of Mr. Trump, be clear on this point. When you export and process coffee, as we have been doing all this time, you get about $2.5 a kilo. The price is now a bit higher, but normally it was around $2.5 a kilo of very good coffee. What they call screen 18, the one with good seeds. When somebody goes and makes coffee, powdered coffee out of that, he may get as much as $40. Now, according to the present value of business in the world of coffee, the present value is $460 billion, the value of coffee business in the world. How much are the coffee exporting countries getting out of that? Only $25 billion. $460 billion, but all the coffee growing countries of the world, all of them, Brazil, Colombia, Vietnam, Uganda, Africa, you get $25 billion. Our wonderful Africa, out of that, gets $2.5 billion. And 1.6 billion of that is coming to Uganda now. But this is because of the high coffee prices. Normally Uganda gets about 900 million out of the 2.5 billion. So, now, if you take a raw material like cotton, so in other words, in every kilogram of coffee, Africa is donating about more than $20 to the rest of the world.
This is why Museveni's iron ban matters. It's not just about iron. It's about refusing to be the first step in someone else's value chain. Because the minute Africa begins processing its raw materials, gold into jewelry, cocoa into chocolate, lithium into batteries, the entire global economic structure begins to shift. The West's dominance becomes less about what they can take and more about what they can offer. That terrifies them. It's why deals are always cloaked in development aid and capacity building, code words for dependency. It's why African countries are often discouraged from building refineries and factories, and instead push toward exporting what they're good at, which always seems to be what benefits the West most. Museveni knows this script. He's seen leaders smile for photo ops while their countries bleed behind the scenes. He's seen Africa celebrated as the future by foreign investors who still want it to act like the past. But what makes Museveni different is that he's not begging for recognition. He's not waiting for the West to approve of Uganda's path. He's writing new rules and daring others to follow. Because once Africa keeps its gold, processes its iron, and owns its oil, the narrative changes. The continent moves from being a resource pit to a value hub, from being looted to being respected. Museveni's message is loud, simple, and unapologetic. Africa has paid enough. Now it's time to profit. And if that means upsetting the old order, so be it. Because that old order never served Africa anyway. Museveni's battle isn't just about minerals. It's about people. And more specifically, it's about the millions of young Africans waking up every day with hope in their hearts and nothing in their hands. Because every time a shipment of raw material leaves an African port, it's not just wealth that's disappearing. It's jobs, skills, opportunities, and a future. This is the part nobody talks about. You see, when Africa exports unprocessed iron, gold, copper, coffee, or oil, the raw material may be physical, but what's being stripped away is invisible. Industrial jobs, technical training, engineering know-how, design experience, production lines, these are the things that build a middle class. And without them, you get what too many African nations have today. A sea of young people fighting over scraps in the informal economy with degrees in their hands and despair in their eyes. Museveni knows that. He's been watching the numbers for decades, and they're terrifying. Uganda's population is booming. Over 70% of the population is under the age of 30. Every year, hundreds of thousands of young Ugandans enter the labor market. But the formal economy doesn't have space for them. Why? Because the country doesn't process its resources. That means factories aren't built, industrial parks are empty. The value chain ends before it even begins. But here's the part that burns. While Ugandan youth struggle to find work, foreign workers in faraway countries are employed processing Ugandan materials. The iron that was mined in Uganda is melted in Asia. The gold is refined in Switzerland. The coffee is roasted in Italy. Every stage of that process adds jobs, just not here. This is not just an economic flaw. It's a moral crime. It's a betrayal of the next generation. Museveni isn't just banning raw exports because he wants more profit. He's banning them because he wants more jobs. Real jobs that don't require people to leave their families, their countries, or their identities just to survive. Let's take a simple example. A steel plant. If Uganda exports raw iron, that's maybe a few hundred jobs in mining and transportation. But if Uganda refines and processes the iron itself, you unlock thousands of jobs. Technicians, machine operators, engineers, welders, builders, logistics workers, maintenance crews, accountants, marketers. And that's just one factory. Now multiply that across multiple sectors. Imagine the coffee sector processing its beans from start to finish, not exporting them green. Or the gold sector building jewelry and electronic components right on Ugandan soil. Suddenly, you're not just talking about employment, you're talking about industrialization. You're talking about nation building.
If you take textiles, cotton has got like 6 job levels. You grow the cotton, that's some job. When you harvest the cotton, you gin it, you remove the seeds. That's another level of jobs, the ginneries. Now, much of the African cotton has been ending there. They export what they call lint cotton. Cotton without seeds, after removing the seeds. Then somebody else goes and does the spinning. Spinning is another level of jobs. Then the weaving, that's another level of jobs. Then the printing of colors, that's another level of jobs. Then the tailoring now, to make garments, that's another level of jobs. Of course, there are other values in cotton which Africans were not bothered with. Gunpowder is from cotton. People don't know that. That's why the Chinese were taking a lot of cotton. Because part of The cotton is what you use to make nitrocellulose, which makes the gunpowder. So that's another bottleneck. They're relying on raw materials, exporting. You are donating money and donating jobs.
That's what Museveni sees, and that's what terrifies the global powers. Because when African nations stop exporting jobs, they start creating competition. And when Africa competes, it wins. But for that to happen, leaders must have the courage to say no to foreign companies, to short-term temptations, and even to old habits. Because the truth is, this raw material export addiction is a form of national self-harm. It's a slow bleed that no one notices until the patient collapses. Museveni's ban is the tourniquet. And let's be honest, this won't be easy. Some investors will walk away. Some deals will fall through. But that's fine, because jobs should not be outsourced for convenience. They are the oxygen of a nation. Without jobs, you don't have peace. You don't have dignity. You don't have a purpose. And you certainly don't have progress. This is not about rejecting trade. It's about demanding fair trade. A trade that doesn't steal our raw resources and leave us jobless in return. Museveni is calling for a trade that builds factories, trains youth, and strengthens communities. He's flipping the narrative. In the old story, African countries are supposed to be the suppliers of raw potential. In the new story, they're the architects of their futures. And it starts with employment. So Uganda isn't just keeping its minerals, it's reclaiming its future, one job at a time. Do you think Africa is changing all at once? What do you think about this decision? Let us know in the comment section. Should we get ready for propaganda against Museveni too after the decisions he is making? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.